When is this girl gonna die already? I am Dov Rachamim Finn Finzelbertopelman, and for the purposes of our exploration this Star Wars Day, I am ForcePositive. I will provide radically positive perspectives on Star Wars. Today, I will be your guide to answering a looming question concerning the fate of my favorite character in all of Star Wars, the death of Ahsoka Tano. Our exploration will answer three questions. First, is Ahsoka dead? Question 2. If Ahsoka were to die of natural causes, how long is her lifespan? Question 3. How old is Ahsoka, and when would her natural death occur? Obviously, spoilers abound, just so you know. Here are my sources. Oh, there they go. Just kidding. Here are my sources. They're shy. Okay, seriously. Here are my sources. Surely I wouldn't do it for the fourth time. Here are my sources. Question 1. Is Ahsoka dead? No. However, we need to talk about the Force Whispers scene. Portrayed in this moment by Ashley Eckstein, Ahsoka's animation voice actor, Ahsoka said one word, 3 letters, in Rey's final battle against Palpatine when Force Ghost Whispers were cheering Rey on. There were 11 total Jedi who whisper encouragement to Rey in this scene. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano, Kanan Jarrus, Luminara Unduli, Qui-Gon Jinn, Aayla Secura, Mace Windu, Adi Gallia, Yoda, and Luke Skywalker. Dead, 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 and also dead. Every other Jedi in the Force Whispers scene besides Ahsoka has died on screen. Now that would lead to the conclusion that just like the other 90.09% of the Force Whisperers, Ahsoka is also dead by the events of Episode 9. However, the man himself has contradicted this and strongly hinted that Ahsoka is still alive. No, not George Lucas, Dave Filoni, creator of Ahsoka and chief creative officer at Lucasfilm, let's go C-Suite, gave one of his famous, delightfully evasive answers in February 2020, just before the release of the Clone Wars final season. I'll read it in full and don the most Filoni hat that I own. In response to the assertion that Ahsoka is dead by keen-eared viewers of the Episode 9 Force Whispers scene, Filoni said, quote, "I have to wonder with Star Wars fans. They seem to watch the movies, but they don't take all the lessons. They deal a lot in absolutes." Which is very much a Sith thing. I remember in The Empire Strikes Back, Luke speaking out through the Force to Leia. Vader also does this at the end of Empire Strikes Back. There is no absoluteness that these people are dead. I mean, some of them we know are dead, end quote. Some of them. Yeah, 90% of them. Oh, and Dave Filoni also posted this piece of art. I think he actually drew it. The art matches his style, and this swoopy loop to the signature with the big D looks a lot like his other autographs. But this delightful little doodle is of Gandalf standing with Ahsoka, where Gandalf says, "People thought I was dead too. Look how that turned out. ... This is as close as we're gonna get to Filoni making a formal statement that Ahsoka isn't dead, given his penchant for giving evasive and non-declarative statements to the ever-clamoring throng of clickbait Star Wars buzz reporters. However, this little doodle also deserves its own sidebar. Join me, won't you? The textual connection with Gandalf from Filoni himself also makes clear a connection that I made in the costume design for Ahsoka's New Republic arc, across Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and of course, the Ahsoka show. Now that connection between Gandalf and Ahsoka Tano is that we were shown a character and costume change of Gandalf the Grey, who gave way to Gandalf the White, just as we were also shown a character and costume design change of Ahsoka the Grey, who gave way to Ahsoka the White, also here seen in Lego form. This connection with Gandalf and Ahsoka's costume design is similar to the fact that Ahsoka's costume design in the New Republic era heavily draws on Star Wars' deep connection to Japanese samurai film. Thrawn literally calls Ahsoka a Ronin. So what was relatively subtextual in the design of Ahsoka's sandal shoes was made textual by the invocation of samurai concepts like Ronin. I argue that with this little doodle of Ahsoka with Gandalf, which was made and posted years before Ahsoka the White took to the screen, with this doodle, Filoni is similarly making textual what was subtextual, connecting Gandalf and Ahsoka's journey from gray to white. Where George Lucas originally drew on mythology, westerns, and samurai film at Star Wars creative inception, Filoni continues that legacy by drawing on the deep cultural significance of Tolkien mythology and further samurai symbology. Long story short, little drawing, they both go gray and white. Moving on!
Back to the previously quoted Dave Filoni interview, Filoni gives a slightly less vague background comment on Ahsoka's inclusion in the Force Whispers scene. I just thought it was a really fun thing. I thought J.J. Abrams' instinct to be so inclusive with all these various elements of Star Wars and characters was great, and I thought it would be a great thing for the actors involved to be a part of something that was just really this celebrating moment of the Star Wars saga.
So I didn't think of it in a literal story way. The film to me is like a different area. When you look at this lineup of Whisperers, you have a wide variety of appearances and a spectrum of relevancy from Adi Gallia to the Chosen One, Luminara Unduli. All joking aside, including animation mainstays like Kanan Jarrus and Ahsoka, with the likes of legendary figures Obi and Annie, along with background prequel-era Jedi Masters, imbues the Force Whispers scene with some of the most satisfying and conclusive moments of Episode 9. The final film in the Skywalker saga. Okay, so we have answered question 1. Ahsoka is not dead, Force Whispers or not, the Togruta survives. Question 2. If Ahsoka were to die of natural causes, what is the lifespan of Ahsoka's species? Of all the main character deaths depicted on screen, Yoda is the only character to die of old age. Leia died from using the Force too hard when reaching out to her son Ben Solo. An argument could be made that she would not have died from Force exertion without also having natural causes play a factor in her death. However, it is widely understood that Yoda is the only Star Wars character to die of natural causes / old age. So, the question assumes that Ahsoka can manage to avoid all the dangers of the Star Wars galaxy, which seems ever more likely given the New Republic's advancements in lightsaber wound recovery. Oh, the miracle of modern medicine. Rub some dirt on it, throw her in a back-to-tank, you'll be fine. I mean, as we have seen, back in the Clone Wars Republic era, one bad shoulder check from a thick Dathomiri could take out a Jedi Master. Ah, how time flies. If Ahsoka Tano is able to survive the dangers of unnatural causes, how long is her species' lifespan? Ahsoka Tano's species is called Togruta, and the Togruta lifespan is... we don't know. Because the canon lore does not provide a clear number range for the Togruta lifespan, I answer this question by drawing on 2 different sources. The first one is a character creation data in the Star Wars Force Unleashed pen and paper tabletop role-playing game. It's like Star Wars Dungeons and Dragons, which is one of the most phenomenally nerdy sentences I've ever said. When creating a character in this tabletop role-playing game, you can play as a Togruta, Ahsoka species. This chart, showing age by stage of life, by species, lists the stage of life category venerable to be 95 plus years of age. So we have one bit of data from a little-known tabletop role-playing game based on a semi-canon video game. Force Unleashed and its sequel are semi-canon. The game isn't fully canon, obviously, but it isn't not canon. It's semi-canon. But before we leave with this Togruta lifespan data point of 95 years, before we leave the Forced Unleashed island, if you will, you might be wondering why the Togruta are such a big part of a tabletop role-playing game based on a semi-canon video game. When the tabletop game offers such character creator species choices as this motley crew of alien weirdos, the Togruta stands out. In fact, keen observers might notice that this little drawing used for reference when role-playing the entire Togruta species is no ordinary Togruta. This is clearly an image of the second most important Togruta in all of Star Wars. Sorry, the most important Togruta until Ahsoka strolled out of the shuttle in 2008, Jedi Master Shaak Ti, who plays a bit part in the first few hours of the video game. In one of the most heinous, I play it for the plot, character designs in all of Star Wars video games. Shaak Ti's Lilu moment is immortalized in one of her deaths, consumed by a Sarlacc monster on the planet of Felucia. Keen observers might have also noticed I said one of her deaths. And may I introduce the uninitiated to the many deaths Jedi Master Shaak Ti. Death number 1! On board the Invisible Hand in the Battle of Coruscant, Shaak Ti is killed by General Grievous in a scene that was deleted from the final cut of Episode 3. Shaak Ti death number 2. During the attempted escape of then Chancellor Palpatine, also during the Battle of Coruscant, Shaak Ti is also killed, again, by General Grievous, in the sadly non-canon Genndy Tartarovsky 2D Clone Wars miniseries. Shaak Ti death number 3. Scantily clad on the planet of Felucia, somehow surviving Order 66, Shaak Ti hops into a Sarlacc monster during a fight with Darth Vader's semi-canon apprentice, Starkiller. Shout out Sam Witwer. Shaak Ti death number 4. In the mobile game version of The Force Unleashed, in the same fight, Shaak Ti is eaten by Felucian plants who were forced to eat her, also by Starkiller. Shaak Ti death number 5. For real this time. When meditating in the Jedi Temple during the Great Jedi Purge, Shaak Ti gets Order 66'd by Anakin/pre-suit Darth Vader. In another scene deleted from the final version of Episode 3. That is 2 different deaths of Shaak Ti deleted from the same movie. This 5th and final death is established as the official way that Jedi Master Shaak Ti dies in the Star Wars canon. And although it is not included in the final version of Episode 3, this version of Shaak Ti's death also appears in Lego form, again non-canon, but finally, after many years, that version of Shaak Ti's death was confirmed to be canon in Yoda's Vision Quest when he first gets to Dagobah in Clone Wars near the end of the show. And that, dear viewers, is the final and canon death of Jedi Master Shaak Ti. However, back to Ahsoka's death. One more Togruta falling to an early death from other than natural causes does not further our exploration to identify when the more important Togruta will croak. Sorry, Shaak Ti. So, to our question number 2. We have one data point of 95 years from a semi-canon source. To pull now from the verified canon, we will draw from another source of true Disney Plus playlist official actual canon Star Wars lore. Episode 1 of the animated anthology series Tales of the Jedi. It's a phenomenal bit of Star Wars storytelling, and a very beautiful episode, especially the pollen scene. The episode's story takes place on the Togruta homeworld of Shaylee, and depicts baby Ahsoka, Ahsoka's parents, who she was separated from, her home village, and baby's first indication of Force sensitivity, which, of course, would eventually cause Jedi Master Plo Koon to remove the child from her family to be raised in a monastic order of emotionless warrior monks with a strict religious code and exposure to extreme danger. Yay! Fallacies in the Jedi Order that totally didn't directly lead to the Great Jedi Purge and the brutal slaughter of thousands of children robbed from their families to fill the ranks of a dying institution. However, a crucial part of the episode is this village shaman lady who recognizes Force sensitivity in baby Ahsoka, which, obviously, this infant pacified a murderous beast and rode it back into town like a cowboy. But anyway, this old shaman lady is obviously very old, which alone is a huge leap forward in our understanding of the lifespan of a Togruta. This shaman proves that the Togruta are not like the Salarian species from Mass Effect, who famously age like an overripe avocado. Because any old Togruta appear in canon, we know that the species can in fact grow to old age, which, yes, feels like a low bar, but when the canon doesn't give us any answers, we have to go digging. So in canon, Shaman Lady represents the oldest living Togruta seen on screen that I know of, and since she's up and moving, not on her deathbed, canon has established this shaman's age to be a few years shy or at the top end of a Togruta's usual lifespan. Because there aren't a ton of elderly Togruta in the episode, we can also assume that this old shaman lady is one of, if not the oldest, Togruta living in the village. But for an accurate calculation of Ahsoka's likely lifespan, we can't just extrapolate on the lifespan of any old Togruta shaman. We have to factor in, extrapolate, and identify the Force sensitivity life extension percentage. And this old shaman lady is not Force sensitive. We know that based on her shock and surprise at Ahsoka's Force powers, and we also know that due to her not being stolen by a monastic order of emotionless warrior monks who live by a strict religious... You get it. Before we go further down this rabbit hole, I'd like to solidify our answer to question number 2 when trying to identify the Togruta lifespan. So with the canon appearance of a venerable age Togruta paired with the semi-canon age range of 95 years of being a venerable Togruta age, I'm comfortable establishing that the canon shaman supports and backs up the semi-canon number of 95 as a reasonable upper limit to the Togruta lifespan. But for Ahsoka, it's not so simple. Any living creature in Star Wars who is especially in tune with or powerful at all in the Force is known to live much longer than a non-Force sensitive individual. So a Force sensitive Togruta like Ahsoka would easily live much older than the oldest Togruta we have seen on screen. But how much older are we talking? If we can extrapolate a cross-species percentage lifespan extension that Force sensitivity bestows, and apply that life force extension to Ahsoka's species' usual lifespan, we can generally identify Ahsoka's age when potentially dying of natural causes. Let's do some math. Canon Star Wars says that a human lifespan is 71 years. Force-sensitive humans are known to live well over 200 years. For the purposes of our back-of-the-napkin math, let's conservatively give it a range of 200 to 250 years. Not that kind of conservative. Okay, this is where the fun begins. Using the formula on the left there to identify percentage change between the regular Force-sensitive human lifespan, we can identify the percentage extension of Force-sensitive lifespan for humans. Since we love getting more generalized data for a better average, using the 200 and 250 year extension scenarios delivers us 2 percentage extensions to average out. When using the all-important average formula, we can average out the two figures and finally, after all that, roughly identify that a Force-sensitive individual of any species can benefit of life extension to their lifespan of 216.9%. When applying that percentage life extension to the lifespan of a Togruta, we can get a projected lifespan of a Force-sensitive Togruta of 206.05 years. Whew! Finally, this is what all that Yaptown was for. It got us from curiosity to concrete answers. Ahsoka Tano will be at least 206 years old when she dies of natural causes. You're welcome, Star Wars. Which now brings us back to question 3. How old is Ahsoka, and how soon before she croaks? Baby Ahsoka was born in the year 36 BBY, which is the calendar numbering system in Star Wars. BBY stands for Before the Battle of Yavin, where Luke blew up the Death Star at the end of Episode 4. It was a cataclysmic failure for the Empire, and the first moment where the Empire's downtrodden subjects were shown that the Empire could be defeated. It's just like BC in real-life history. The BBY years in Star Wars count down to 0 BBY at the Battle of Yavin and count up after 1 ABY after the Battle of Yavin. It'll make more sense soon. So, we're going to take a leisurely stroll through the years of Ahsoka's life and her age at each pivotal year in the Star Wars timeline, which will carry us through time skips, betrayals, and accused terrorism. Ahsoka was born in the year 36 BBY, which, you guessed it, makes her 0 years old when she was riding around the murderous beast with her nascent Force powers. Ahsoka was inducted into the Jedi Order at age of 3 by Jedi Master Plo Koon, who removed the child Ahsoka from her homeworld and from her family into the cold and emotionless Jedi Temple. Side note, Plo Koon is Dave Filoni's favorite character. It's no wonder that Filoni's second most important creation, Ahsoka, was discovered by and deeply connected to his favorite Jedi, Plo Koon. I only say his second most important because Filoni had a part in bringing us the baby. Ahsoka was the ripe old age of 4 years old, learning at the Jedi Temple when the events of Phantom Menace and 32 BBY took place. Because the events of Attack of the Clones ends right as the Clone Wars are beginning, during the same year, several events are all jumbled together, which will be a returning theme. Ahsoka was 14 years old during the events of Episode 2, and also 14 years old when she was assigned to learn under Anakin, and when she was first introduced to Star Wars, trotting off that shuttle alone, instead of bringing supplies or reinforcements to the first Battle of Christophsis in 22 BBY. Ahsoka Tano was 17 years old when falsely accused of terrorism in one of the Clone Wars' best arcs, and unquestionably the most noir arc. After 14 years dedicating her life to the Jedi Order that betrayed her, Ahsoka Tano left, never advancing beyond the rank of Padawan. But before long in the same year, in the greatest arc in Clone Wars, Ahsoka was brought back to Mandalore as a liberating hero. And in the same year, her epic duel with Maul, unfortunately, also brought Order 66. 19 BBY really was like the 1968 of Star Wars. At age 18, after surviving in exile, Ahsoka absolutely myrtleizes this Inquisitor and joins up with a rebellion. During the events of Solo in 10 BBY, Ahsoka is 26 years old, growing up fast and rebelling it up. Ahsoka is 31 years old throughout the events of Andor Season 1, which all covers less than a year. I don't know how Cassian dealt with all that stress. The next year, in 4 BBY, Ahsoka enters a new phase of her life and joins a group of rebels that will accompany Ahsoka for the next many years of her life. At the end of Star Wars Rebels Season 1, Ahsoka connects with the ghost crew of Phoenix Squadron, Sabine Wren, Ezra Bridger, Hera Syndulla, Kanan Jarrus, Ger Zeb Aurelios, and the second best droid in Star Wars, Chopper. Suck it, 3PO. So, we need to hold things for a moment at 3BBY. During this year, Ahsoka, Ezra, and Kanan travel to the Sith Temple on Malachor, and after picking up Maul, who just happened to be hanging out around there on the planet, actual freaking Darth Vader shows up. Ahsoka had previously sensed Vader's previous identity through the Force and her deep connection with Anakin, but this is the first time seeing in burnt flesh just what had become of her former teacher. Now here is where things get really weird. Ahsoka and Vader are fighting ferociously, and the whole Sith Temple locks them in. Kanan, Ezra, and Maul escape. The thing is, she's locked in, losing a battle with Darth Vader, and all seems lost. But by the end of the episode, which is also the Season 2 finale, you can clearly see Ahsoka walking out of this temple alive. How can this be? Ahsoka was definitely going to lose that duel with Darth Vader, and in all likelihood he was going to kill Ahsoka. And our whole speculation of how long her uninterrupted natural life would be for naught. Now what they don't tell you at that time is that shot takes place 2 years after the rest of the episode, and Ahsoka hasn't aged a day. No, literally she hasn't aged a day. It is now 1 BBY and she's still 33 years old. Because in 1 BBY, 2 years after Ahsoka's fight with Vader on Malachor, Ezra Bridger enters the World Between Worlds. He reaches through a Force portal, pulls Ahsoka through the portal from her fight with Vader in 3 BBY into the World Between Worlds in the grand old year of 1 BBY. After making sure that Star Wars Satan can't control the interdimensional time portal superhighway, then finally, in Season 4 of Rebels, Ahsoka hops out of the World Between Worlds back on Malachor, where we first saw her in Season 2 walking out and around the temple. So Ahsoka got away with not aging for a couple years, which will really help extend her life down the line. And for anyone interested, the calculations I had to use to find Ahsoka's age for any year after 1 BBY is in parentheses 36 plus X minus 2, where X is the year number in question. So if the year is 10 ABY, the calculation would be 36 plus 10 in parentheses minus 2 equaling 44. Ahsoka is supposed to be 46 in 10 ABY, but because she skipped 2 years back in 3 BBY to 1 BBY, she's only 44 in 10 ABY. It's truly wild that I've gotten away with so much math in this video. I hate math, but moving on. In 1 BBY, after Ezra Squid Whale warps with Thrawn out of the galaxy, Ahsoka takes Sabine as an apprentice for the first time. They both create all the drama that they kvetch about in the Ahsoka show years later. Love it. During the Battle of Yavin, in the events of A New Hope, Ahsoka is 34, Ahsoka is 37 during the events of Empire Strikes Back, and Ahsoka is 38 during the events of Return of the Jedi and the Battle of Endor. She's doubtlessly feeling complex emotions at the redemption of Anakin Skywalker and the fall of the Empire on one hand, and her former teacher's tragic death. Now, we have another banner year coming up that feels like the 19 BBY of the New Republic era. I don't know if you're ready for this. The following occurs in the year 9 ABY. Din Djarin finds Grogu. The entire events of Mandalorian Season 1. Din Djarin and Grogu find Ahsoka. The entire events of Mandalorian Season 2. Luke trains Grogu. The entire events of Book of Boba Fett. Bo-Katan's Mandalorians reclaim Mandalore and reignite the Great Forge. The entire events of Mandalorian Season 3. The entire events of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Ahsoka and Sabine reconnect. They head out of the galaxy to Peridia. They switch places with Thrawn and Ezra, who return to the galaxy from Peridia. Oy, I would have never guessed this all happened in 12 months. Wikipedia has literally nothing recorded for the events of the next year 10 ABY. So this is it, people. We have our answer, part of it. If it wasn't already abundantly clear, this period of 9 ABY and onwards is where the bulk of Star Wars stories in this part of the timeline are going to be set and released. They are working on Ahsoka Season 2, which might take place right after these events, but for the purposes of our question of how old Ahsoka will be during this stretch of new releases, we're looking at 43 to 45-ish years old, which we have also established is not even halfway through of Force-sensitive Togruta's possible lifespan. Now, the knock-on question to all of this is not only how old Ahsoka was during the events of the original trilogy, but specifically how old Ahsoka was during the events of the sequel trilogy. Ahsoka is 49 years old when Rey is born. Ahsoka is the age of 62 when Ben Solo kills all the Jedi Padawans at Luke's temple and becomes Kylo Ren. And again, another banner year, Ahsoka is 68 years old during the year of 34 ABY. Another mind-boggling stretch of events are jammed into a single year. Starkiller Base is destroyed, the Battle of Crate happens, and Luke dies from hologramming too hard. And finally, we have reached it, dear viewers, the final recorded moment of Star Wars as of 2025, the Battle of Exegol and the events of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Ahsoka Tano is 69 years of age, and to circle back to the beginning of this entire exploration, Ahsoka is 69 years of age when whispering Rey's name encouragingly through the Force, along with 90% other dead Jedi. So, there you have it, dear viewers. We've reached it. We know. In conclusion, Ahsoka is less than halfway through a low-end estimate of her natural lifespan by the events of the final recorded moment of Star Wars so far. If that Ryan Gosling movie ends up coming out, then Ahsoka could still be available to show up. One of the most storied and miraculous lives lived in all of Star Wars can continue for 137 more years. She's still out there, and Ahsoka Tano is available for Star Wars stories for a long, long time ago in a galaxy you get it. Alright, Star Wars. I've been working on this video topic for like 4 months, and it's been a blast to share it all with you. Bit of a channel background. If you dig back into my backlog of videos, you'll see a smattering of gameplay clips and voiceover readings that were all released pretty steadily for a couple months and then a gap of nothing until now. The burst of frequent little releases were all a fun diversion during a period of unemployment, and thankfully my new job has been keeping me very busy. Clips and YouTube shorts have always done well with the algorithm, so I'll probably be chopping this chat up to bite-sized chunks to throw like darts at the wall to see what gets the attention of the machines. If you made it this far, you have my thanks. I am ForcePositive, and I will provide radically positive perspectives on Star Wars. May the Force be with you, and happy Star Wars Day.